There is going to be a morning when you wake up. And you don't want to become the person you said you were going to become. Not because you've given up, not because you don't care anymore. You just don't feel like it. The alarm rings. You stare at the ceiling. Your phone is lying beside you, glowing in the darkness. And somewhere in your head, you already know what you're supposed to do. Study, work, train, create, practice, start. But then another thought arrives. I'll do it later. And strangely enough, it doesn't sound like an excuse. It sounds reasonable. You're tired. Yesterday was exhausting. You haven't been feeling your best. You deserve one day off. You can start tomorrow, and tomorrow sounds harmless until you realize you've been saying it for months. Pause. Maybe that's the part nobody warns you about. Your life doesn't usually fall apart in one dramatic moment. Sometimes it happens quietly. One postponed morning, one skipped session, one unfinished project, one promise you make to yourself, and then quietly break. Again, again, and again. Until eventually, you don't even remember the moment you stopped taking yourself seriously. Visual. A dark room. Phone screen showing an early morning time. A notebook sits untouched on a desk. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Your goals don't care about your mood. Your goal doesn't know that you're tired. It doesn't know that you're anxious. It doesn't know that yesterday was terrible. It doesn't know that you don't feel confident today, and time doesn't negotiate. The clock keeps moving, the deadline keeps getting closer, the opportunity keeps passing, and your future keeps becoming your present. But there's something deeper happening here. Because maybe the real problem isn't that you lack motivation. Maybe you've accidentally taught yourself that you are only supposed to act when you feel like acting. And if that's true, then your mood isn't just affecting your day. It's quietly deciding the direction of your life. Think about it. When you're motivated, everything feels possible. You watch one powerful video, you hear one sentence that hits you, you imagine the person you could become. Suddenly, you're ready. Tomorrow morning, you're going to wake up early. You're going to study. You're going to work out. You're going to stop wasting time. You're going to build something. You're going to change. And for a few hours, you believe it. You can almost see the future version of yourself. Disciplined, focused, successful, confident, different. Then morning arrives, and the feeling is gone. The excitement has disappeared. And suddenly, the same thing you were desperate to do yesterday feels exhausting today. So you wait. You tell yourself you'll start when the feeling comes back. And that's where the trap begins. Because motivation is emotional, and emotions are temporary. They rise, they fall, they change with your sleep, your stress, your environment, your conversations, your failures, your wins. Sometimes they change for no reason at all. So if your actions depend entirely on your emotions, your consistency will always have an expiration data. Visual. Fast montage. Alarm clock. Unopened book. Gym shoes untouched. Laptop closed. Unfinished checklist. And maybe you've experienced this. You make a plan on Sunday. Sunday, you is ambitious. Sunday, you has a vision. Sunday, you looks at the week ahead and thinks, this time, I'll actually do it. Monday comes. You're busy. Tuesday comes. You're tired. Wednesday comes. You miss one thing. Thursday comes. You think the week is already ruined. Friday comes. You promise yourself you'll restart Monday. And suddenly, another week is gone. Nothing catastrophic happened. You didn't lose everything. You simply didn't move. And that's what makes this dangerous, because stagnation doesn't always feel like failure. Sometimes it feels like normal life. There's a reason this pattern is so easy to repeat. Your brain naturally pays attention to what feels rewarding now. The comfort of staying in bed is immediate. The relief of postponing difficult work is immediate. The dopamine from checking your phone is immediate, but the reward for studying, later. The reward for building a skill, later. The reward for becoming disciplined, much later. And humans are remarkably good at choosing what feels better now over what matters more later. Not because you're weak, because immediate rewards are psychologically powerful, and modern life gives you an almost unlimited supply of them. Your phone doesn't ask you to wait. Entertainment doesn't ask you to struggle. Scrolling doesn't ask you to become better. It simply asks you to stay. One more video, one more notification, one more scroll, one more excuse. And while you're consuming little moments of comfort, your larger goals are quietly waiting. But here's where the story becomes more interesting. Because you might think discipline means forcing yourself to work constantly. It doesn't. Discipline isn't about becoming a machine. It isn't about waking up at 4 a.m. every morning while destroying yourself. It isn't about never resting. It isn't about pretending you're never tired. And it certainly isn't about hating yourself into productivity. Real discipline is much quieter. It's the ability to decide what matters and continue respecting that decision even when your emotions temporarily disagree. That's a very different idea, because now the question isn't, how do I feel? The question becomes, what did I decide? And those two questions can lead to completely different lives. Imagine two people. Both have the same dream. Both have the same amount of time. Both face the same difficulties. Both feel tired. Both have bad days. But there's one difference. The first person asks, do I feel like doing this today? The second asks, is this still important to me? That's it. Same goal, same discomfort, different question, and over time, different life. Because the first person allows temporary emotions to renegotiate permanent decisions. The second person understands something incredibly simple. You don't have to feel committed every day to remain committed. Read that again. You don't have to feel committed every day to still be committed. You can doubt yourself and continue. You can be tired and continue. You can be bored and continue. You can have a terrible day and still take one small step. That's not weakness. That's emotional maturity. Pause. But there's a problem. If you already know all of this, why is it still so difficult? Why can you understand discipline intellectually and still struggle to practice it? Why do you know exactly what you should be doing and still find yourself doing something else? Why does the version of you that makes promises at night so often disappear by morning? There is an answer, and it has less to do with laziness than you might think, because the real battle isn't always between you and your goal. Sometimes the real battle is between the person you are today and the person you've become comfortable being. And that difference is where everything begins to change. Pause. Because your brain doesn't simply resist difficult tasks. It resists unfamiliar identities. And if you've spent years telling yourself, I'm inconsistent, I'm lazy, I never finish anything, I always quit, then every attempt to become disciplined creates friction. You're not just trying to complete a task, you're trying to behave differently from the identity you've rehearsed for years. And that is why sometimes the hardest part of change isn't knowing what to do, it's becoming someone who actually does it. Visual. A person sitting at a desk. The unfinished work is in front of them. They look at the clock, and tomorrow morning, you will probably have another choice, not a dramatic one. Nobody will know about it. There won't be music. There won't be applause. You'll simply wake up. And once again, you'll have to decide whether your mood gets the final word. And that decision may look insignificant, but repeated enough times Those insignificant decisions become your identity, and your identity becomes your life. Fade to black. But there's one question we haven't answered yet. If motivation is unreliable and your mood keeps changing, what do you actually rely on when you don't feel like becoming the person you promised you'd become? That's where the real conversation begins. There is a strange kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from constantly negotiating with yourself. You know what needs to be done. But every time the moment arrives, your mind opens a discussion. Should I do it now? Maybe after dinner. Maybe after I feel a little better. Maybe tomorrow. And because you're the one asking the question, you're also the one giving yourself permission. No one else has to convince you. You convince yourself quietly, reasonably, almost elegantly. And that's why this habit is so difficult to notice, because procrastination rarely sounds like, I don't care about my future. It sounds like, I'll do it when I'm in the right state of mind. And that sentence can keep you stuck for years. Imagine, close-up of a phone, a motivational video ends, the screen goes dark. Think about the number of times you felt inspired. Maybe it's late at night, you're alone, the room is quiet, and suddenly something clicks. You start thinking about your future, about everything you could become. You imagine yourself months from now, more skilled, more disciplined, more confident. You make a mental promise. Tomorrow will be different. And for a moment, you genuinely mean it. That's important. Because you're not lying to yourself. You actually believe it. The problem is that you're making the promise while experiencing one emotional state and expecting your future self to honor it while experiencing a completely different one. And your future self has their own feelings, their own fatigue, their own distractions, their own fears. So when tomorrow arrives, you're essentially asking a different version of yourself to obey a decision made by someone who no longer feels the same way. And that's where the negotiation begins. You tell yourself, I'll start after I finish this. Then I'll start after I feel rested. Then I'll start properly tomorrow. And eventually, the goal becomes something you repeatedly prepare to pursue without ever actually pursuing it. You research, you plan, you organize, you watch videos about it, you buy the notebook, you create the schedule, you make the playlist, you imagine the transformation, everything except the uncomfortable part, doing it. And this is one of the most deceptive forms of procrastination, because preparation feels like progress. Thinking about the future version of yourself feels almost as satisfying as becoming that person. For a moment, you get to experience the identity without paying the price of building it. You feel productive without having to be productive. And the brain loves that shortcut. But eventually, reality asks a simple question: what did you actually do? Not what did you plan? Not what did you intend? Not what did you watch? Not how motivated were you? What did you do? Because your future isn't built from intentions. It's built from repetitions, small ones, boring ones, sometimes almost invisible ones. One page, one workout, 1 hour of focused work, one difficult conversation, one application, one practice session, one day where you didn't feel like it, but showed up anyway. That's the part nobody romanticizes, the boring middle. Everyone loves the beginning. The beginning has energy. A new notebook, a new routine, a new goal, a new year, a new version of yourself. Everyone also loves the result, the transformation, the achievement, the finished product. But almost nobody talks about the space between those two things, the ordinary Tuesday. The day nothing exciting happens, the day your progress is invisible, the day you practice and still feel bad at it, The day you work and nobody notices. The day you study and forget half of what you learn. The day you create something and nobody watches. The day you show up and nothing seems to change. That is where most people disappear. Not because they suddenly stop wanting the goal, but because the emotional reward disappears. And without the emotional reward, they stop seeing a reason to continue. This is where motivation becomes dangerous when you misunderstand it. Motivation is useful. It can start things. It can create momentum. It can make difficult things feel exciting. But motivation was never designed to carry an entire life, because motivation is a feeling, and feelings fluctuate. You don't wake up every morning feeling ambitious. You don't wake up every morning feeling brave. You don't wake up every morning believing in yourself. Sometimes you wake up and you're just tired. That's normal. The mistake is believing that a temporary emotional state should determine a long-term commitment. Imagine if you treated every important part of your life that way. I don't feel like studying today, so education can wait. I don't feel like practicing today, so the skill can wait. I don't feel confident today, so the opportunity can wait. I don't feel ready today, so my life can wait. Eventually, you don't have a lack of potential. You have a life controlled by emotional weather. Imagine clouds moving rapidly over a city, cut to someone sitting beside a window. And emotions are weather. Some days are clear, some days aren't. You don't control every cloud, but you can still decide where you're going. That's what discipline really gives you. Not unlimited energy, not constant motivation, direction. It gives you something to follow when your feelings become noisy. But there's another reason we avoid action, and this one is more uncomfortable. Sometimes we don't procrastinate because the task is difficult. We procrastinate because completing the task would force us to confront what happens if we genuinely try. Think about that. If you never seriously try, you never have to discover your limits. You can always tell yourself, I could have done it. I just didn't have enough time. I wasn't ready. I wasn't motivated. And that story protects your ego, because failure hurts, but potential is comfortable. Potential lets you imagine an extraordinary future without ever testing yourself against reality. You can remain talented in your imagination forever. You can remain capable. You can remain someone who could. But the moment you actually try, you risk discovering that you're not as good as you thought, and that can be terrifying. So sometimes procrastination isn't an escape from work, it's an escape from judgment, especially your own. Maybe that's why starting feels so heavy, because starting isn't just let's do the task. Sometimes starting means let's find out what I'm actually capable of. And there is no guarantee that the answer will immediately make you proud. You might be terrible at first. Your first video might be awkward. Your first attempt might fail. Your first week of studying might feel ineffective. Your first project might be ignored. Your first version might look nothing like the version in your head. But that's not evidence that you shouldn't continue. That's evidence that you're finally in the process, because every skill has an ugly beginning. Every meaningful transformation has a phase where the old version of you is still visible and the new version hasn't fully arrived. That phase is uncomfortable, and most people mistake discomfort for a sign that something is wrong. It isn't. Sometimes discomfort is simply the feeling of growth before growth becomes visible, and then there is comparison. You open your phone. Someone your age is traveling. Someone is building a business. Someone is getting opportunities. Someone looks incredibly disciplined. Someone has already achieved the thing you've been thinking about for 2 years, and suddenly your own progress feels pathetic. You don't see their ordinary days. You see the result. You don't see their uncertainty. You see their confidence. You don't see the hundreds of attempts that failed. You see the one that worked, and then you look at yourself and think you're behind. So you become overwhelmed. And when you're overwhelmed, action becomes harder. You don't need to take one step anymore. You feel like you need to catch up with an entire life. And that's impossible. So you do nothing. Here's the paradox. Comparison can make you want success so badly that you become less capable of pursuing it. Because now the goal isn't simply to improve. The goal is to prove something to yourself, to your friends, to strangers online, to the people who doubted you. And when every action becomes a test of your worth, even small failures become unbearable, so you avoid them. Not because you don't want the dream, because you want the dream so badly that you're afraid of what failure might say about you. Imagine social media feed, scrolling quickly, faces, achievements, numbers, screen suddenly turns black. But your goal was never supposed to be a referendum on your worth. You are not more valuable because you achieved something, and you are not less valuable because you're still learning. That's important, because discipline shouldn't come from self-hatred. You don't need to become cruel to yourself to become consistent. The goal is not, I must work because I'm not good enough. The healthier question is, what kind of life am I willing to build even when I don't feel perfect? That's different. One is punishment, the other is commitment. And commitment has a strange quality. It becomes strongest when nobody is watching, when there is no applause, no immediate reward, no exciting transformation montage, just you and the decision. You said this mattered, so you do something about it. Maybe not everything, maybe not perfectly, maybe not for 3 hours, but something. Because consistency doesn't mean performing at your maximum every single day. Sometimes consistency means knowing the difference between I genuinely need rest and I'm uncomfortable, so I'm looking for an escape. Those are not the same thing. A disciplined person isn't someone who ignores every emotion. They're someone who can listen to an emotion without automatically obeying it. That's a completely different level of control. Think about anger. You can feel angry without acting angrily. Think about fear. You can feel afraid without running away. Think about doubt. You can doubt yourself without quitting. And the same principle applies to motivation. You can feel unmotivated and still act. That might be one of the most important skills you ever develop, because eventually you'll realize you don't need your emotions to agree with your goals before you move. You just need to know which one deserves the final vote. And maybe you've been waiting for that perfect feeling. The day when everything clicks. The day when you wake up disciplined. The day when you suddenly love studying. The day when working hard feels easy. The day when you stop craving distraction. The day when you finally become that person. But what if that day doesn't arrive first? What if the person you're waiting to become is built by the actions you keep postponing? What if confidence isn't something you need before you begin? What if it is partly something you earn by repeatedly proving to yourself that you can trust your own decisions? And what if discipline works the same way? Not as a personality trait you're born with, but as a relationship you build with yourself. Every time you say you'll do something and then actually do it, you cast a tiny vote for the person you're becoming. Every time you repeatedly abandon your own decisions, you cast a vote in the opposite direction. One day doesn't define you, but patterns do. Imagine a calendar. Small marks slowly appear across several days. This is why the smallest promises matter. Not because studying for 20 minutes will magically see. Maybe you've been looking at discipline the wrong way. Maybe you thought the goal was to become the kind of person who never feels tired, never gets distracted, never feels uncertain, and never wants to quit. But that person doesn't exist. And the moment you stop expecting yourself to become emotionless, something becomes much clearer. The goal was never to control how you feel. The goal was to stop letting every feeling control what you do. That's the difference. And it sounds small, but it changes almost everything. Think about a pilot flying through a storm. The pilot doesn't control the weather. They don't sit inside the cockpit thinking, I refuse to fly until the sky becomes calm. They know the storm exists. They account for it. They adjust. They keep the destination in sight. Your emotions work in much the same way. Some days will be calm. Some days will be chaotic. Some days you'll feel powerful. And some days you'll question everything. But if every change in emotional weather changes your direction, you'll never travel very far because you'll constantly be turning. Imagine a lone road disappearing into fog. The surroundings change, but the road continues forward. And this is where the idea of feeling ready becomes dangerous. You tell yourself, I'll start when I'm ready. But ready for what? Ready to be uncomfortable, ready to fail, ready to be bored, ready to look stupid, ready to be a beginner, ready to discover that the thing you've imagined for years is harder than you expected? Most people aren't actually waiting for motivation. They're waiting for certainty. And certainty rarely arrives before action. It usually arrives after. You don't become confident and then take difficult action. Often you take difficult action and confidence slowly follows. You don't become disciplined and then start keeping promises. You start keeping promises, and discipline begins to become part of who you are. You don't wait until fear disappears. You act while fear is still sitting beside you. And eventually, fear stops being the person holding the steering wheel. That's the shift, not the disappearance of emotion, but the redistribution of authority. Your emotions can have a voice. They just don't get to run the meeting. And maybe that's the real problem. You've been giving temporary feelings permanent authority. A bad morning becomes, I'm having a bad week. A failed attempt becomes, I'm not good at this. One missed day becomes, I always lose consistency. A moment of doubt becomes, maybe this isn't for me. Look at what happened. The event was temporary, but the meaning you attached to it became permanent. That's how one bad day becomes an identity. And once an identity is formed, your behavior begins trying to prove it. If you believe you're inconsistent, you notice every time you quit. If you believe you're lazy, you interpret tiredness as evidence. If you believe you're bad at something, every mistake becomes confirmation. You don't need a psychology textbook to understand it. You've probably lived it. You make one mistake, and suddenly your brain starts collecting evidence. See? I knew it. This is why I never succeed. And now, the original problem isn't even the task anymore. The problem is the story you've built around the task. This is why identity matters. Because behavior isn't only something you do. Repeated behavior teaches you something about who you are. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you send a message. I'm someone who follows through. Every time you choose the difficult thing over the immediately comfortable thing, you tell yourself, I'm someone who can tolerate discomfort. Every time you continue after an imperfect day, you reinforce the idea that you're someone who doesn't need perfection to continue. These messages accumulate slowly, and quietly, until one day, discipline stops feeling like something you're trying to perform. It starts feeling like something you naturally return to. Not perfectly, but reliably. And this is where the paradox becomes interesting. You think you need motivation to take action, but sometimes action is what creates motivation. You think you need confidence to begin, but beginning creates evidence that you can trust yourself. You think you need discipline before you can become consistent, but consistency is what develops discipline. You think you need to feel like the person you want to become before behaving like them. But behavior is part of what creates that person. It's backwards, at least emotionally. Your mind says, first make me feel ready, then I'll act. Reality says, act first, let the feeling catch up. Imagine now, person tying their shoes before sunrise, no dramatic music, just silence. And this doesn't mean forcing yourself through everything. That's another misunderstanding. Sometimes you genuinely need rest. Sometimes you're overwhelmed. Sometimes life happens. Sometimes stopping is the intelligent decision. Discipline isn't refusing to listen to yourself. It's learning to distinguish between I need to stop and I want to escape. Those two sentences can feel almost identical in the moment, but they lead to completely different futures. Rest restores you. Avoidance reinforces the fear. Rest helps you return. Avoidance teaches you to run. The skill is learning the difference. And here's something most motivational content gets wrong. It makes discipline look dramatic. Cold showers, 5 a.m. alarms, 2-hour workouts, 10-hour workdays, extreme routines. But most of your life isn't going to be made of dramatic moments. It's going to be made of ordinary ones. A Tuesday afternoon, a boring assignment, a quiet evening, a difficult chapter, an unanswered email, a skill you're still bad at, a day when nobody is watching. And those moments don't look cinematic, but they are where your future is actually being constructed. Imagine your goal is on one side of a massive distance and you're standing on the other. You look at the distance and think, how am I ever going to get there? So you wait, because the distance is overwhelming, but your life doesn't ask you to cross the entire distance today. It asks you to take the next step, then another, then another. The problem is that people often compare their current step to their final destination, and that comparison makes the present feel pointless. You look at someone else's finished building while staring at your first brick. Of course you feel behind. But the first brick isn't supposed to look like a building. It's supposed to be a first brick. That's why your daily action has to become smaller than your ambition. Not because your ambition is wrong, but because your brain needs something it can actually execute. If your goal is to become an excellent writer, write one page. If your goal is to become fit, move your body. If your goal is to master a skill, practice. If your goal is to build something, build the smallest version. The point isn't that tiny actions are magically enough. The point is that starting removes the psychological weight of starting. And once you're moving, continuing becomes easier. Not always, but often. There is another trap though, and it might be one of the biggest. You can become addicted to starting over. Think about it. Monday feels powerful. A new beginning, a new schedule, a new notebook, new rules. You promise yourself, this time I'm serious. For a few days, everything feels clean. Then something goes wrong. You miss a day. You sleep late. You get distracted. You lose momentum. And instead of simply continuing, you declare the entire attempt ruined. So you wait for another Monday, another month, another year, another fresh start, and the cycle repeats. Start, fail, restart, fail, restart. But real consistency isn't never falling off. It's becoming less dramatic about falling off. You miss a day? Return. You have a bad week? Return. You lose motivation? Return. You make a mistake? Return. No ceremony. No identity crisis. No, I've ruined everything. Just return. Because the person who succeeds isn't necessarily the person who never breaks the chain. It's often the person who doesn't allow one broken link to become the end of the chain. Visual. Calendar. With several missed days. Instead of restarting the calendar, one new mark appears the next day. And maybe that's what you need to hear. You don't need a perfect week. You need the ability to come back. You don't need to feel motivated every morning. You need a reason strong enough to continue when motivation disappears. You don't need to become a completely different human overnight. You need to repeatedly behave like the person you're trying to become. And that takes us to something deeper, because goals aren't really about goals. Not completely. A goal might be getting fit, getting good grades, building a career, creating a business, learning a skill, making money, or creating something meaningful. But underneath every goal is another desire. You want to become someone you respect. That's the deeper game. You want to wake up and trust yourself. You want to know that when you say, "I'll do it," you mean it. You want to stop making promises to yourself that disappear when the mood changes. You want to stop needing a motivational video every 3 days just to remember why your future matters. You want to become someone whose actions don't constantly contradict their intentions. That's why discipline feels so powerful. Not because productivity is morally superior, but because self-trust changes the way you experience your own life. When you trust yourself, you stop needing to constantly negotiate. You decide, then you act. And suddenly, the original question changes. It's no longer, how do I stay motivated? It's, how do I become someone who can act without needing motivation first? That is a much better question, because you can't control every emotion that enters your mind, but you can practice what happens next. You can feel fear and take the step. You can feel doubt and keep learning. You can feel tired and choose what matters. You can feel unmotivated and still do the minimum necessary to keep the promise alive. That's freedom. Not doing whatever you feel, but being able to feel something without becoming controlled by it. Pause. But now comes the hardest part, knowing this isn't enough. Because tomorrow morning, your brain will still give you reasons. Your phone will still be there. The bed will still be comfortable. The work will still be difficult. And your mood will still change. Understanding the problem doesn't automatically change the behavior. You need a system that works when your emotions don't. Something simple enough to use on an ordinary bad day. Because the goal isn't to build a routine that works when you're motivated. Anyone can do that. The real goal is to build a life that still moves forward when motivation disappears. And that's where we go next. Because if your mood can't be trusted to lead you, you need something else to lead you. Not punishment, not perfection, not endless willpower, a structure, a standard, a way of deciding what gets done before the mood arrives to negotiate. Because the strongest version of you isn't the person who always feels ready. It's the person who has stopped making readiness a requirement.